Hey guys, ready to write this essay? It's 0.4 writing a college application essay and step 1 show don't tell in your essay. The learning objective is students will be able to write a first draft of the college application essay. We're really focusing on these two criteria, 3 and 4. So the actual language that you use and how your voice comes through. How clear, focused, and compelling your ideas are as we look at this particular strategy. So what is it, show, don't tell? Well, I got a couple quotes here first to help illustrate this idea. The first is from the playwright Anton Chekhov, who said, "Don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on broken glass." Notice the difference between the two. How about this one from Hemingway? "Show the readers everything. Tell them nothing." Show don't tell is a strategy that creative writers use that you can use as well to help you, instead of telling the reader how you feel, show them by immersing the reader in a film-like recreation of an event. And so when you are showing instead of telling, you're choosing your words carefully so that the words will create images for the reader that will then create the feelings you want them to feel. So in the example from Anton Chekhov, if the writer were to say, "The moon is shining," sure, we would see a shining moon. But if the writer were to say, "The glint of light on broken glass," reflected, or some other verb, we would have a feeling behind that moon shining that's created. And because we as the reader help to create the feeling, to construct the meaning, it feels more real. And it makes us have emotions too. So this is a really great technique, and you'll hear about it whenever you learn about creative writing. Okay, there's 5 great ways to help you show instead of tell. The first one is to evoke all 5 senses. So you're using details in your piece that create the senses for the reader. What are the 5 senses? We've got sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. This one here certainly evokes the sense of sight. Anything else? Broken glass might hint at touch too, right? We can feel that. There's a danger in touching broken glass, and so it evokes that sense of touch maybe as well. Another strategy to get to do show, don't tell is to use specific adjectives. Adjectives are describing words. So the adjectives in this sentence are broken, I guess, is the only one we've got, right? Broken. What kind of glass is it? It's broken. So that word is very specific. It isn't, and it creates the same picture in the mind's eye for each reader. So you want to use specific adjectives like that. A good way to know if it's not specific is it a wonderful adjective? The word wonderful is not specific because it doesn't create the same picture for each reader in their mind's eye. Broken, however, creates something very similar for each reader. That's what it means to use specific adjectives. Okay, another one is use active verbs. Verbs are action words, right? And so action words are the words that are acting. They are the words that make a sentence a complete sentence. We have in this sentence the word is a verb, and that's the kind of verb you don't want to use because it's not active. It's a to be verb. Again, it doesn't create a specific picture for the mind's eye. Now, Chekhov doesn't have a verb in this part, and I sort of added one earlier. If you noticed, I said reflected. If something reflects, It's a clearer verb than just the fact that it is. And so that's another good one to use, or a good strategy to use. I'll show you some examples in a sec, okay? Make original comparisons. Comparisons are things like similes, metaphors, analogies. You're comparing one thing to another, but you want to avoid using a cliche. Cliches have already been done before. They've been done so often, in fact, we recognize them as readers. And so they're not interesting. They're not original. I'll show you an example from a student sample in a sec. And our last one is, oh, was it just 4? I thought I had 5. JK, there's the 4. Strategies to help us show rather than tell. Okay, this is the first paragraph from the essay, the student sample in Schoology, let's see, called My Aunt's Abundant Joy, written in 2023. And so let me read it to you first. 49 days. It has been 49 days since my aunt with Down syndrome has passed away. It is a breezy September afternoon at the Lien Hoa Temple, where I find myself surrounded by family and an extensive array of teary eyes. In Vietnamese Buddhist tradition, 49 days after an individual's passing marks the next transition to their afterlife, reincarnation. As I kneel down with my palms together in the praying position, I cannot help but look up at the urn resting to the right of the altar. It is an intricately crafted vase of solid beige ceramic with gold accents. Beside the urn is a wooden picture frame of my aunt smiling with abundant joy. Her eyes shine like the gold glinting off the urn, and I realize it is the perfect image to constitute the light she had once brought to our family. All right, so let's look for examples of showing and not telling in this student sample. First of all, the 5 senses. A breezy September afternoon. Well, that evokes at least the sense of touch with breezy. Afternoon gives us maybe a sense of sight with how the light might be coming. September evokes maybe a sense of touch as well. We know it's maybe cooler than a summer day. And so instead of saying it was cool, it's a breezy September afternoon. How about this one? With my palms together. Here she's describing how she is responding, right, to this part in the ceremony. And palms together evokes the sense of touch. We can feel that. Solid beige ceramic with gold accents. That's a lovely detail evoking the sense of sight. All right, how about specific adjectives? Notice that the way that she describes people crying. This is really common, you guys, to have characters, whether it's yourself or someone else, cry in your piece. A good tip I once got was never cry on the page, because instead you want your reader to cry. You want to get them so sad they cry instead of telling the reader they're crying. However, the way that this student describes it is effective, I think, because of the specific adjectives used or the interesting language used to describe the people crying. It's an extensive array of teary eyes instead of everybody was crying. Here we have smiling with abundant joy. Abundant is a nice specific adjective, maybe somewhat vague. Maybe we see different pictures in our mind's eye when we read it, but the idea of being generous, having more than enough, is probably clear to all of us. How about active verbs? Here are some verbs the student uses where I find myself surrounded by, instead of I was with family, I find myself. It's an interesting choice of verb. It makes us feel like this is a new situation. That's unexpected. Marks is a nice active verb. Kneel down, look up, smiling, realize. These are all effective active verbs. Original comparisons, she's got one. Her eyes shine like the gold glinting off the urn. This is an interesting comparison because the urn, of course, is in a sense, a symbol of death, right? It houses the ashes of the deceased. And yet the memory, the picture of her aunt is reminding her of, this very full of life woman that with abundant joy. So the comparison between the eyes in the photo and the gold on the urn shows us that poignant feeling that this very vivacious person is now no longer with us. All right, so those are some examples from a student sample. I've got one more example from the great Margaret Atwood. And here is her short couple of lines from her great short story called Betty. Betty was sitting by herself at the iron table of the breakfast nook. For once she wasn't doing anything, and there was no cup of coffee in front of her. Her face was white and uncomprehending, as if someone had just hit her for no reason. All right. This is a character who is clearly surprised and alone and has suffered something unfortunate, right? But Atwood doesn't tell us any of those things. Instead, we have that iron table creating this cold, sturdy feeling, paralleling the feeling that the character is experiencing. No cup of coffee in front of her. Instead of saying she was without anything, it creates an image through its absence, right? No cup of coffee in front of her. So typically she would have a cup of coffee, and that's an image that we can see, but because it's not there, this image has been negated. It's been taken away from us as readers. White and uncomprehending, instead of saying Betty didn't know what hit her, that's a cliche. Her face is white and uncomprehending. And the last one is a comparison, as if someone had just hit her for no reason. So again, instead of using the cliche, it just hit her. This interesting comparison, as if someone hit her for no reason, brings back the original kind of interesting aspect of saying it had just hit her. It reanimates this sort of dead metaphor. All right, so those are some examples of how to show rather than tell. I hope that you will use those as you work on your college application essay so you can really impact the reader without them even knowing what you're doing.